Hello, and welcome to the 40th Vancouver International Film Festival. I'm Sandy Gao, I'm the International Shorts Programmer, and glad to have you here for our discussion with some of the filmmakers from my Have We Ever Learned program. I'd just like to introduce our guests here today, starting with Quincy Ledbetter, the director of Black Disquisition. With The Night I Left America, director Laki Karavias. And with A Roll in the Hay, director Geoffrey Fighiera. And with Chants from a Holy Book, directors Cesar Gananian and Cassiana de Haroutiounian. And I'm hoping I pronounced your last name right, Cassiana. As close as I could get without questioning you on it.
You did well.
Okay, thank you. Glad to have you all here today. Cesar and Cassiana, your film, we're having the world premiere of your film here. It is such an in-depth and wonderful examination of a really universal condition and conditions. And I kind of wanted to just get a little bit of the background from both of you about where you came up with the ideas for this and your approach to it. I know, Cassiana, you have a fairly direct connection in some ways to the story, but I'm going to let you tell it.
Well, we are Brazilian, but our grandparents are Armenian. We study in an Armenian school that they created here in São Paulo. And we always had a connection with Armenia, but more in a traditional way, like family and the language. When we start to learn more about cinema, I study cinema, Cassiana studies photography. We discovered a lot of Armenian avant-garde directors, like Sergei Parajanov, Peleshian, Artavat Peleshian. And these directors made us feel reconnected again with Armenia. They are really avant-garde directors, and that made us want to create films that use Armenia as a background to talk about the things we want to talk about, using the beautiful musicality of Armenian language, the image aspect of Armenia. Everything always seems to us like a dream. And Chants from a Holy Book comes from Cassiana, was in Armenia. Sorry about my English. There have been like 2 years that I don't speak English.
You're doing
sorry
good.
about that. Cassiana was in Armenia when the revolution, the Velvet Revolution started.
Yeah, in 2018, I think in July. And I say, okay, can I talk?
Go.
Okay.
Yes.
I was in Armenia, like just traveling in July in 2018. And then I was talking with a lot of people there, and they were talking about the revolution that happened there in April. And I came back to Brazil, and I called Cesar and I said, okay, we have to do a movie about that, but we don't know what kind of movie we will do about this, because it's really, it's hard for us to talk about one revolution that we didn't live. But say, you can talk about Brazil, because something happened in Brazil in 2018 also, right? 2000.
Yes, Brazil also had a kind of big, not revolution, but big waves of protest in 2013. But these waves brought to us today to Bolsonaro, and extremely right government. And so we really had a more static vision about revolutions. Like we were not so enthusiastic, but we were open-minded. So the first thing we did, we went to Armenia just to investigate what happened, and we talked with a lot of people. And then we start to create this movie. When we start to talk about people, then we met a writer, and he read to us some tales he wrote. That was our first chapter. And we met a poet that became the actress in the last chapter. So we start to create a film that was not about the revolution, but the wheel of transformation. That was our goal, to be a meditation, a reflection about the risk of a revolution, of change.
Of changing, yeah.
Maybe there was one image that really inspired me when Cassiana came back to Brazil, and was a stone being cut. She filmed it with her cell phone. And maybe this was the start of this film, like something really hard. And the work of the machine is a kind of destruction and creation at the same time. And I think this is the main idea of the film.
And the image you're talking about is of the big saw cutting that giant stone in that factory.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a powerful image, that image. It's very beautiful. I thought your film was so beautifully constructed, so really well put together. It brings out so many ideas for you as a viewer, and as it goes on, you start to layer the meanings so very nicely. Yeah, I found it very moving, and so did my previewers who had watched it as well. Everyone who saw it, we just fell in love with it. So,
wow.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
what is a fairly experimental film in many ways, it's still pretty accessible, because the ideas are so powerful and so universal. And that's what I liked about it too, was you took just the genesis of what happened in Armenia, but then really applied it on a much broader level. And I get exactly what you're talking about, Cesar, with what happened in Brazil. It's kind of the opposite of a revolution in a weird way.
Like microcosmos is the first perspective of the things. And this microcosmos could be a family, a boy, then the self, then the house, the society, and the macrocosmos, and how everything relates. And the idea that we most felt in love was when we interview cosmology, a Brazilian cosmology, a man who studied the cosmos. And he said, he talked a lot about the solidarity between the microcosm with the microcosm with the macrocosmos. The laws are different, but they can coexist. And this is a kind of magic that possibilities the existence of the universe.
And Quincy, your film deals with a very long-standing and in many ways very universal issue as well, with racism. But you did it so beautifully, taking it down to a personal level. I really appreciated that.
Thank you.
I will say that originally I had your film in my animation program, but I had 2 or 3 other really heavy films in that program, heavily themed programs, and I didn't want it to be so completely overpowering, but it fit in this program so beautifully too. But I like the way you use the animation to kind of, I don't want to say soften, but let's just say mute the message a bit.
Yeah, it was more about like, and thank you so much for programming the film. It's such an honor to be involved in this festival and this panel. But yeah, the animation was more of a way, it's from a kid's perspective, and I was really into cartoons when I was a kid, so it's kind of like everything from a kid's perspective, you're just like getting a sense of everything. So things are a little less detailed. You're not seeing the nuance in a lot of things. So I thought that going at it from, you know, an animation perspective. Anytime we're in the kids' perspective, the young me essentially is was the way to go, just to kind of like give it this kind of mystical, kind of like unreal feeling, you know.
You're absolutely right. As a kid, you're looking at the big picture, not all the details, you know. But it's also the powerfulness of that experience for him that I thought you captured really well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's a story that has been following me around since, you know, that the situation that happened at the guidance counselor's office, that happened to me in the 4th grade. And the situation in the department store happened way much sooner, you know? And I've been carrying kind of this boulder on my shoulders for all this time. And it just felt like the right time to tell the story and kind of like exorcise the ghost out of me so I can move on. And that's also why I did the monologue myself at the end, as sort of like an assertion of like, this is what this situation did to me. This is how it almost kind of got me, but I'm moving on from it now, and I'm moving on with like strength and love and all that stuff, you know.
And it's very powerful because you take something that's so personal and you make it so universal. And I always really appreciate that in films where the director is not trying to make this grand statement. They just make this grand statement because it's so, there's that connection to it, to the message, you know. And I really felt you did that beautifully in your film.
Thank you. It was really important to not, and I think I said this in the film, to not teach anybody any lessons, you know. It's more about like, hey, this happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to other people. And you can come out of it at the other end stronger because of it, you know.
And I think on both sides of the coin, both from the Black experience in America, your film is so relatable, and as you say, experienced certainly, I'm sure, by many other people. But also as an outsider, it's a powerful message that it really hits you, that yes, you know, this is real. This was and is still reality, which is the sad part about it. That unfortunately, it's retrenching even more than we thought. We were making some progress for a while.
Yeah, we were for a minute there, you know.
Yeah, until Donald Trump came along.
Yeah, it's interesting because you know, when my father did have to talk with me, he was talking about things in the past, you know. And the images, you know, when we go, so I used images from the past, you know, to kind of like from his era, from his generation, to kind of illustrate what he was telling me. But then switching to the stills photos, and those are photos that I took at Donald Trump's inauguration, when it switches to the stills at the end. And a lot of those images look the same. It's like, look, we're still fighting in the same way. It still looks the same, you know? And there's something really visceral about that I just kind of wanted to like make that visual connection, you know?
Yeah, and you did really powerfully.
Thank you so much.
It was a very moving film for me, you know, and I hope for our audience too, that they get the message, and it's so relatable the way you delivered it. It's really fantastic. And Laki, your film deals with other aspects of America too, that have come into question more and more. The myth of America that's being fostered, has been fostered for so long, and yet there are people who are clearly shut out from that and will never be able to be part of it. Where was your inspiration? I know this came out of a project you started, but the story itself, where did that come from?
Yeah, so a lot of my work prior to this film, which I can't even consider work because I didn't get paid for it, but a lot of my work had been working on documentary content for NGOs abroad, specifically around child protection. And so I've done a lot of traveling to what we would call third world countries. And if anyone has ever traveled to any of these places that we label third world, there's full of some of the most joy-filled, content, loving, generous people you will ever meet. And then every time you come back to America, which is supposed to be the land of prosperity and opportunity, you know, even in myself, I feel so much of the time that I am grasping for something else and not present in the moment, and just not living life how I think we should live it. And then when I go and sit with the family in a little hut, I feel that they are giving me the actual thing that I've always needed. And it's just so natural for their way of living. So I think in terms of like the message, that's something I've felt for about the past decade. And this, the situation in making this film, which was very strange, kind of afforded an opportunity to tell it in a way that was true to a culture that I've gotten to know very well and have a lot of relationships with people there. So yeah.
And it kind of started as a project that you were doing with just some interested young people who were interested in filmmaking.
Yeah, so I was living in LA. I was trying out LA, and it was sucking the life out of me. And I had a friend who was a co-founder of an organization in Uganda who kind of jokingly said, "Hey, do you want to leave all of your directorial aspirations on hold and be a driver for a Ugandan children's choir around the US?" And I actually was looking for any excuse to leave LA. And so I traveled with this Ugandan choir for about 6 months. And I had actually met them a year previously when I was on a project in Uganda. It was just like a group of the most like magical kids you'd ever meet. And I was like, this just sounds incredible to put everything on hold. Well, while we were traveling, I had my camera gear, and I asked any of the kids if they wanted to learn how to just shoot some stills. And so some of the kids started learning about ISO and aperture. And then one morning we did like a sunrise shoot. And then a couple of the kids, without even me asking them, woke up to learn how to like actually shoot some video. And so from there, we kind of progressively we started with a dialogue scene between a mother and a son in a kind of ramshackle trailer in the middle of Texas. And the story just kind of grew from there. So everyone you see on the camera, so the mother in the film is the choir director. The boy who plays her son is one of the kids in the choir. The young version of him is a kid in the choir. The man who plays the father is the director of the organization. And then everyone behind the camera, it's like me and all these kids, like boom operating, sound mixing. So my crew is like me, and I think the kids were between 14 and 15, and they're all back in Uganda now, like working on all their own projects, and they're all just like dead set on a future in filmmaking, which has been pretty phenomenal. So.
And that's fantastic. But I also must compliment you, because I did wonder about that. How many were any of the actors actually professionals, or were they all amateurs? No, they're all amateurs.
No one had acted before. I took some like directing actors training. And so I tried to use all my skills I learned in New York on them. But, the mothers, especially who played Chamagero's mom, I mean, she knew she was awesome. And she was just like, she became like a little acting diva offset. She's like, I'll give you my best performance, but first I must have my tea. I'm like, okay, Lydia, we'll get you your tea. So,
But they're embodying roles that they related to, that they knew.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. And Geoffrey, your film has just such a wonderful, crazy ride. I mean, I love it. From the first time I saw it, I just was blown away. It's so well put together. It completely surprises you in so many places. Where did you come up with that story?
Thank you. We are really, really proud to be part of the festival this year. The story, it's not a personal story. I prefer to say directly it's not, but it comes. I have decided to make that movie because of a strange story. I used to work with an editor of comics. who asked me for writing for a book, and I hadn't time at this moment to make the work he asked me, but we discussed about other script he has already received, and that's he has a few lines about this situation of revenge. I would call that revenge. And I answer him, I haven't any time for writing what you ask me, but this line you have, I want to meet the author, I want to write with him, because I'm sure it will be a great story as a short for my next short movie. So I jump on a great idea I receive, and that's why we have made the movie. And it was why I wanted to make that movie, because for me there is a very this is a subject I really like. It's the phantasm of revenge, because it's a very universal feeling. If you are betrayed by somebody, especially in a couple, by your wife or your man, etc., you have this your imagination will your dream will be to make them pay the price, and you will phantasm a very big revenge. Of course, you will not do anything at the end, but in my story they do for real. So
and we're left hanging. We're not sure what the mistress is going to do, but we know she's not happy.
No, she's not happy. and she's great, by the way.
Oh, I was just about to compliment you, because your film is so much about the acting. I mean, if the acting isn't top level on all three parts, it's not going to work. And the performances are fantastic. Where did you find your actors?
This movie is my second one, and I have spent a lot of time to find the actors of the movie, and it was, for me, I was discovering the casting process. I take a lot of time. I have the chance to work with a casting director in Paris, who is a friend now, and we spent, I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7 sessions of casting to find the right person for the right role. Because the difficulty of the movie is my main character is not just an actor in a movie; it's also an actor in front of the 2 other actors. So that's why we find someone, Clémentine Verdier, who comes from theater play, because it makes sense in the movie. She has to play, she has to give the rhythm of the movie, and the rhythm is not easy to yeah, of course we have a camera shot, etc., but she has to put the energy, because the 2 other guys are on the chair, so she's the only one to move. So we spend a lot of time to find the 3 actors, and I'm very happy to have found that.
And it's very theatrical, because it's all shot really essentially in that one room, so it's very much, it could be on stage. You're right.
My first idea was to make a sequence shot, but I was afraid to be really frustrated to not have a real editing process. So it's a sequence shot like I mean, we have decided to move around the actors during all the time, but yes, it's like a theater play. Yeah, of course.
There's 2 characters in there really who are acting. There's the man who is acting in front of the 2 women, because he's been playing games with them for some time. But then there's the wife, the jilted wife, and her performance is just spectacular. I just loved her.
Thanks for her. Yeah, I think she's great. Yeah, and above all, I'm very yes. I have an obsession of repetition. I make a lot of repetition before shooting, and she's like me. So it was a great meeting for that, because we have taken so much time before the movie, the shooting, to repeat what I call the choreography of everything. So it was fantastic to shoot.
Yeah, no, it works so well. It works so well, and it just keeps you on the edge of your seat throughout. But it's a great lesson too. You know, that's why it's in the program, because cheating men is an old problem. We're human beings. I don't know why, for some reason, but it's still it's just a wonderful little thriller.
Yeah, it deals with a lot of human feeling, and the bad ones especially. And yeah, there are plenty of things, plenty of reading to have from this movie. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, I think we're going to have to call it here, sadly, but this was a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad we got to meet you and got to hear more about your films. I'm sure our audience has really enjoyed it, and I hope that the program will be a big hit. And I also hope one day that perhaps we'll get to meet in person. Geoffrey, I will get to meet your cinematographer in Vancouver, which is great.
Yeah, I'm so happy he's from Vancouver.
Yes, you told me that in the email.
That's so funny. Yeah, we were so happy to have the chance to be in Vancouver for that. It was great.
And he did a great job too. Your film is so beautifully shot.
Thank you for him.
But all your films are so wonderful. I really appreciated having them, and look forward to in the future that we'll reconnect again.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Sandy,
much
for everything. Yeah,
Thanks
Thank
to
you.
all for all the movies. It was great. I have spent a very good moment to watch all the movies I have received.
you.
It was great. Thank you.
Yeah.